Joining us now is environmentalist Ian Borsuk from Environment Hamilton. Ian, we've heard officials say that everything is under control now, but how concerned should residents be about this slow burn of vinyl chloride in Ohio?
Yeah, I think residents, especially folks who live close to the site, should be very concerned. And generally speaking, I think everyone, including folks like us in Canada, should be concerned as well, because this isn't the first time a major train derailment like this has happened. There are many news stories over the last decade, going back all the way to 2014, when there was a similar spill in New Jersey. And as far as I can tell, and as far as what we can tell from what's been reported, the regulations have just not caught up to where we need them to be. So vinyl chloride on its own is not great. And the way it was disposed of by burning it does create a chemical reaction where a variety of carcinogenic compounds entered the atmosphere. Most notably would be hydrogen chloride. Hydrogen chloride, not good for human health. And when you think about how, I believe off the top of my head, the safe consumption for that for a human would be, 5 parts per million. When you think about the plume of smoke we've seen in the images and just how much of that material was burned and released into the atmosphere, and now we're hearing about the fallout effects from that potentially with regards to ecosystems being disrupted and wildlife dying. I think it certainly needs to be a major cause for concern that this happened, and that seemingly there's no measures in place to prevent it from happening again.
Well, we know there's some reports of fish dying in the river there and some of livestock dying as well. How might this impact water and soil quality as well as animals moving forward?
Yeah, so if it's already made its way into the waterways, which is extremely likely, we're going to be seeing the impacts for many, many years. And if we're also seeing the impacts on livestock, particularly larger livestock, that also makes me much more concerned for human health. When incidents like this happen, it's extremely key that efforts are taken to prevent it from happening in the first place, because once a spill happens, it's already happened. Those chemicals have entered those waterways, they've entered the groundwater and the like. And cleanup is going to be extremely expensive. It's going to be extremely costly, and it's going to have an impact on human lives and wildlife around that area for the foreseeable future in the way that it was handled.
There are residents who decided to evacuate and are still away from home. How long might it take for these chemicals to dissipate? And if you were living there, when would you feel comfortable going back home?
I'll be honest with you, I don't know. I certainly wouldn't be comfortable going back home anytime soon. And for the folks, especially folks who have young children, saying that they're not going to return, I don't blame them. I would maybe return to gather my things that were inside safely and the like, but I would be seriously considering moving in a permanent way after something like that happening, especially if I was living so close. It's going to be impacting the ecosystems for a very long time, as we just discussed. And I just can't help but think that the major impacts that this is going to create on the local wildlife and the local ecosystems is going to be incredibly disruptive. And, I hope it's, clear to any viewer that I really, from an outside perspective, don't have a lot of faith in the regulation agencies that are overseeing this cleanup. I think it's extremely concerning that we're being told that things are okay. Well, in the case of a journalist being arrested during an update and the like, I think we need to be really critical of this. And, I really thank you, Kelly, for covering this story, because I truly believe it hasn't been getting the right attention that it needs and the right scrutiny that it needs from the public, both in America, but also beyond, because once that goes up into the air, that ends up part of the atmosphere, and that could have impacts on Canadians' health as well.
Thanks for joining us, Ian.
Thank you, Kelly.